So today I have been given the task of speaking on the IIM logo, and before I venture into that segment of my talk, I would like to briefly explain or introduce to you what the Bhagavad Gita is all about, because the quote that you see in your IIM logo is from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So before we proceed to the 18th chapter, there are 17 chapters prior to it. So total Bhagavad Gita contains 18 chapters, and the verse in which this specific quote of the IIM logo is from the 18th chapter, 45th verse. So there are nearly around, in the 18th chapter itself, there are around 700 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So out of the 700 verses, this will be around the 675 or 680th verse. So if we have to understand the 685th verse, then we must learn the prior to the 685 verses. So it is a sequential learning that we have to take. Just like if you have to learn calculus, first you have to learn addition, then you have to learn multiplication, then you have to learn various other aspects of mathematics. Then we can understand numberless mathematics, right? So higher mathematics to understand, we have to come from the lower mathematics. So similarly, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita very sequentially explains to Arjuna the philosophy of life. As many of you must be knowing, Bhagavad Gita is actually a very non-sectarian philosophy. The application of the principles of the Bhagavad Gita is universal. Every human being faces challenges in life. Personally, professionally, we all have various types of challenges. How to deal with those challenges in the best possible way. And there can be no better teacher than Krishna. One of the ways in which we address Lord Krishna is Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Right? Krishna is, we pay obeisances to Krishna as Jagat Guru. He is a great teacher. Right? Krishna plays multifarious roles. Krishna in the battle of Kurukshetra, relationship with Arjuna was teacher. Whereas Krishna with Arjuna at other times was like a Sakha, like a friend. Krishna with Yashoda was mummy's baby. Krishna with Radharani was like a henpecked boyfriend. Krishna with the Gopalas of Vrindavan was like a very dear friend. Krishna to Kamsa, Krishna to Jarasandha, Krishna to Shishupala was fierce enemy number one. So if you see, Krishna is a very multifarious personality playing various roles, right? And he excelled in each of those roles. So Krishna's role as a teacher is very significant, because the dimensions in which a good teacher is recognized by the way in which he can explain certain concepts from very different dimensions, right? Because life is all about seeing things in different dimensions. Edison saw so many failures as a stepping stone to success. Edison didn't invent the bulb in one go, right? Many of you must be knowing the story of Edison, right? So when people asked him that, Edison, you have failed so many times, he said, no, I have not failed. I have learned one more new way in which this will not work. So it's all about perspective. How you see things. You see failure as a failure, or you see failure as a learning. Right? So, Krishna, because Krishna is no ordinary person, he is able to bring in dimensions which is beyond the limited scope of our levels. So, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever he is speaking, every word of Bhagavad Gita, why is it relevant? Why is it important? Why is it a game changer? The only reason we all want to hear something from the Bhagavad Gita, something from the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, what is the principal reason we want to hear? Because the speaker is Krishna. Otherwise Bhagavad Gita has no value. Gita gives us, the importance of Gita is because the speaker is Krishna. He is not an ordinary person. So we have to begin from there and then look at Gita. The Mahima, the importance of Gita comes from the person who is speaking Gita. The personality matters. I give a speech and somebody else gives a speech. There's a huge difference. I remember in Indian Institute of Science, because I am from Bangalore, my friend who studied there, he was telling me a story. So in Indian Institute of Science, there was a lecture that was arranged in chemistry lecture on DNA structure by one Nobel laureate chemist. So he came from the US to speak on DNA structure. So when he came, the auditorium was jam-packed. Everybody wanted to hear his lecture on the DNA structure. It was jam-packed. And this devotee friend of mine who studied from IIM, he was telling me, just after he listened to the lecture, the same points, the same things, what this Nobel laureate spoke, just 1 week prior to this man's lecture, another professor had spoken on the same DNA structure. Hardly 10 people were there. So you see, it's the same concept, the same content. But what matters is who speaks. That's what holds value. Like, that's the reality of this material world. That's the reality of this world that we live in. So, point is that Bhagavad Gita's relevance, you cannot remove Krishna from the picture. This Srila Prabhupada, our Acharya, constantly points out. There are many Bhagavad Gita's interpretations. But the most important aspect of the Bhagavad Gita is who is the person who spoke the Bhagavad Gita. The relevance of Bhagavad Gita is because it was spoken by Krishna. That is the first essence, the principal thing. Now, Krishna, because I have a short duration and I have to come to the topic also. There are very important distinctions that we have to make to understand what is the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, because the context of Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna, who was a friend of Krishna, and Krishna decided to support Arjuna by engaging with Arjuna as his charioteer, as his driver. So Krishna assumed the role of a driver in order to just guide and be with Arjuna in his battle. It was not Krishna's battle. Krishna said, I will not have a direct role in this battle. I will have only an advisory role to Arjuna. So in that advisory role, Krishna did the act of speaking the Bhagavad Gita. When Arjuna declined to fight the battle of Kurukshetra, citing XYZ reasons. And what was the reasons? He said, this battle is basically a battle for property. Right? The context of the Bhagavad Gita is that between two siblings or between two cousins, there was a battle over a dispute over a land, and that finally ended up being settled through a battle. The battle had to settle who will get that property. So Krishna says, ये आपस की लड़ाई है भाई, तुम रिश्ते धर्म के बीच की लड़ाई में जो हमको घुसना नहीं है. I don't want to enter this battle of relatives fight. So I will play a secondary role of only advising you, my dear friend Arjuna. But Arjuna said he wanted that only. He wanted Krishna to be by his side. So suddenly when the battle was about to begin, Arjuna said, I will not fight this battle because I see that to win this battle, I have to kill, murder people who are very dear to me. And who is the people whom he has to kill? He has to kill his own teacher, Drona. He has to kill his own grandfather, Bhishma. And a host of many other people whom he very closely related to. So Arjuna says, I will not fight this battle. It's better to live like a beggar. Go to Himalaya and live like a saint. Live like a sadhu. I will take up that rather than fighting this battle. And then Arjuna lays down his weapons and just sits down in the chariot with great frustration. That's when Krishna starts speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So this kind of a situation many times in our life we face. Whether I should do this thing, whether I should not do this thing. We also have challenges in our life. What decision should I take? So the teachings of Bhagavad Gita apply to all of us because the principles are the same. How to overcome this kind of a weakness in our life. So irrespective of our caste, creed, religion, race, color, it is applicable to all of us. Our Acharya Prabhupada gives the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. He gives an example to illustrate what this philosophy is. He says, the taste of sugar. What is the taste of sugar? Sweet. The taste of salt is salty. Right? Now, taste of sugar, if it is tasted by a Muslim, will it be different? Taste of salt, if it is tasted by a Christian, will it be different? No. Chemically and by your tongue, whether you are a Muslim, whether you are a Christian, whether you are a Hindu, or whether you are Shudra, Brahmana, Kshatriya, whatever you are, the taste still remains the same because its chemical composition is the same for everyone. It is for all gender, for all caste, for all religion, it is the same. Because the truth is, the taste of salt is salty, the taste of sugar is sugary, sweet. Actually, tattva, when we say tattva means truth. Its original state of existence. That is what Bhagavad Gita talks about. It doesn't talk about faith. Faith is different. I am a Muslim, I have a Muslim faith. I am a Christian, I have a Christian faith. I am a Hindu, I have a Hindu faith. It may change. But truth doesn't change. Reality doesn't change. Reality of salt doesn't change by the faith of the person. Right? So the principle, the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita is about truth. Existential reality. That is what the Gita is talking about. So the universality, the relevance of Bhagavad Gita is the same irrespective of your class, creed, gender, everything. Because its reality is the same for everyone. So what is this reality Krishna speaks about? Like for example, great thinkers of this world, great, very, very phenomenal people who have created groundbreaking research and things in the world like Albert Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Henry Thoreau, Aldous Huxley, name n number of people who have been inspired by the teachings of the and it's relevant to everybody, whether he is an American, whether he is a Christian, whether he is an Indian, whether he is Jewish, whether he is Japanese, it doesn't matter. Because the principle of Gita applies to everyone universally. Because the problems that we face, the realities that we face, and how to handle this, Krishna explains, uses this situation to explain and elucidate the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. So the context of the Bhagavad Gita wherein Arjuna declines to fight the battle, Krishna uses that to explain the philosophy of Krishna consciousness or the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. So one of the things, the basic thing that we must understand is that what Krishna talks about is there are two natures. For doing anything, there are two natures. I'll explain to you what is this. Two natures. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a material nature and there is a spiritual nature. Now, how to understand material nature and spiritual nature? Now, to understand what is material nature, our body is material. What is our body made up of? Different types of chemicals. Like if you ask a chemical, if you ask a scientist, he will say this body is nothing but a network of various chemicals. This body is composed of different types of chemicals, minerals, metals, so many things are there in this body. It is composed of sodium, it is composed of potassium, it is composed of magnesium, it is composed of iron, right? This body is nothing but a bundle of various chemicals. And where is these chemicals coming from? It is all coming from this earth. So Krishna says, this physical dimension, this body dimension, we say as Panchabhuta. It is principally composed of 5 elements. The Bhagavad Gita says, this body is composed of 5 principal elements. What are these 5 principal elements? Krishna says, Bhumir Apa Anala Vayu Kam Mano Buddhir Evacha Ahankaram Iti Yamme Vinna Prakriti Rashtada. Krishna says, this physical dimension is composed of Bhumi. All these potassium, sodium, calcium, where does it come from? It comes from the earth. So first thing is Bhumi. Krishna says this is coming from Bhumi. Then he says Bhumi Apaha. In our body, what is the single biggest element that is there in our body? This body maximum, what does it have? Water. Apaha. Second thing he says, first is the element, all the chemicals come from the earth. Second is Apaha. Apaha means in Sanskrit, water. Analaha. Analaha means what? Analaha means element of heat. Like for example, we eat food. How is food digested in our body? Our stomach produces hydrochloric acid. Right? It produces hydrochloric. You take the stomach's hydrochloric acid and put it onto your hand, you will have an acid burn. But the same acid within your stomach, you don't get burns. You see, the divine nature has created a shield inside your body, inside your stomach, which protects you from any burns, whereas it burns all the food that you eat. Pachan Shakti. The digestive strength comes from heat. So Krishna is saying, third aspect is Apaha, Analaha, heat. Then Krishna says there is another Amsha. What is that? Bhumir Apa Anala Vayuhu. Our body has pockets of air. Right? Our lungs are working. It's nothing but a pump house. It's pumping in air, pumping out air, pumping in air, pumping out air. The air is a very important thing within our body, right? In the physical dimension. So that's the fourth element. Then Krishna says there is the fifth element. Krishna says the fifth element is ether. When we say ether, it means there is vacuum. There are pockets of vacuum within our body. This modern science also accepts. When we say these things, there is no any contradiction in these things. So this is the material element of our identity, our physical identity, our bodily identity. And Krishna says there is another, these are called gross identity, gross elements, okay, which is directly perceivable. Then there are subtle elements. What is that subtle elements? Krishna says Man, Buddhi or Ahankar. Krishna says mind, intelligence and ego. Now mind doesn't have a physical form. Supposing I ask you, where's your mind? It doesn't have a shape or a form, but it exists. Supposing you say, because it doesn't have a shape or a form, I don't have a mind. Then I say, you don't have a mind. Right? Where is intelligence? Intelligence doesn't have a physical form, but we all know intelligence exists. Ego. We all have our ego. Right? So this is another subtle form. So we say even this mind, intelligence and ego, this forms the subtle identity. The gross identity is the physical identity. The subtle identity is made up of mind, intelligence and ego. Now this is the material reality of our identity. But Krishna says, Apareyam itastvanyam vidyame param gatim. Apareyam. Krishna saying, in the 7th chapter, Krishna is saying, beyond this material elements of gross and subtle, there is another identity. There is another identity which is superior to this identity. What is that identity? Krishna is saying, for our current understanding, I will call this the spiritual identity. The gross, very clearly, it is physically verifiable. The subtle, we can comprehend it that it exists. But Krishna is saying beyond this material of gross and subtle, there is another dimension to our identity which Krishna gives the reference point as spiritual. How to understand spiritual? For that you have to understand how modern science works. Science, we say, works on two dimensions. What is this two dimension? Like for example, I take this. Now, I drop this. Why did this fall down? Gravity. Now, we were told in our school that this was first discovered by Newton. Newton said the reason for this to fall is gravity. And the story is that Newton was sitting under the apple tree. The apple fell on his head, and Newton said that why should the apple fall down? That means there is some kind of a force that is bringing it down. And Newton called this as gravitation. Now this was a great discovery for modern science. Why? Because from Newton's laws of gravitation, laws of motion came into existence. From laws of motion, all the mechanical sciences came into existence. Our vehicles that you see, the aeroplane that you see, the cars that you see, are all basically an outcome of Newton's laws of motions. So it is fundamental physics established by, so Newton is called one of the fathers of modern physics. Now Newton said that the reason for this falling down is because of gravity. Now spiritual dimension doesn't look at only this reality. It goes one step beyond this reality. He said if this has to fall down, gravity definitely it is there. But supposing if I am the person who is holding this, if I don't drop this, will this fall down? So another way of looking at it is, gravity made this fall down. No. Vyomapada dropped this, that's why it fell down. Right? If Vyomapada would not have let this go, will this fall down? Gravity is still existing, but yet because Vyomapada is holding this, it is not falling down. Actually, Krishna explains this phenomena very nicely. Krishna is saying, Apareyam itastvanyam vidyame param gatim. Krishna is saying, my dear Arjuna, what you see the phenomenal world, what you see the things that is happening around you, you only see external realities. But behind this external reality, there is another reality which controls this external reality. Apareyam itastvanyam. And Krishna says to Arjuna, try to find out that reality. And I can give you knowledge about that reality which controls all the phenomenal realities. which controls everything else. So this is very, very groundbreaking, very, very powerful things. Now, how to understand this? Now, for that, to understand this, like for example, any subject, it needs research. Right? You cannot do just, like for example, if something has to be found out, path-breaking discovery has to be created, then somebody has to make effort to make things happen. Right? Actually, to understand that spiritual reality, it takes tapasya. Tapasya means what? Effort. Sadhana. Just like for you to become an MBA person, for you to become a research scholar, you just know Mungeri Lalka, Asin Sapna, you will become an MBA. No. Asin Sapna say you don't become something. You have to practically get down to the nitty-gritties and do the work. Then only you get the understanding of the reality. Right? So actually, Krishna is telling Arjuna to take up tapasya, the path of tapasya, to understand, to come to the platform of understanding the source of all realities as you see how it is happening. Like for example, when you see the sun rising every day in the morning, when you see sun setting every day in the evening, every day morning at 6 o'clock, 6:15, when you wake up in the morning, you see the sun is there. Every day at 6:15, 6:30 in the evening, you see the sun setting in the western hemisphere. As any day being there, that you got up in the morning, yaar, aaj Surya nahi uday hua. Kahan gum ho gaya? No, not a single day. Millions and millions of years, every day the sun is rising. Every day astronomical positions are very clear. Every day it will rise here. Every day it will set there. In the month of September 3rd, the astronomers have clearly defined the position of the sun is there. Rising sun's position is this longitude, this latitude. The setting sun is this longitude, this latitude. So precise it is. And it comes there only. Does it happen by chance? Don't you think we should ask the question, is it just happening by chance? Or is there some other way in which this is working, some other? What does science say? Science says, beyond every phenomena there is a reason. Nothing happens by chance. We can say that I do not know. That's okay. That's being humble. But you cannot deny the fact that these things just don't happen by itself. So, Krishna is saying there is a material nature to our actions. There is a spiritual nature to our actions. Now, Krishna says Arjuna to dwell, to understand the spiritual nature of things. How to understand its spiritual nature rather than just looking at it as a material phenomenon. This is a very, 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 very important distinction that we must make in our life. Because there are consequences for our life, huge consequences when we see things in this perspective. When we see things in perspective of a material nature, there are consequences. And Krishna defines these consequences as the karmic world. When Krishna says karma, that is the karmic principle. Behind that activity, there is karma. Karma means what? Karma means any activity that you perform, there is a action and reaction. There is a fallout of reaction from that action. Good or bad. Anything that I do, there are reactions from that action that comes to. So this is called the karmic world. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, actions can be performed beyond the karmic nature of doing activities. And Krishna is saying, learn the art of doing work in such a way that those actions you don't generate reactions. Krishna is saying this is superior way of acting. For example, Arjuna declining to fight the battle of Kurukshetra is reason given by Arjuna is that this action will give me dukkha. Right? Arjuna is citing the reason that killing my own guru, killing my own grandfather will give me pain. Obviously, for Krishna, Dronacharya is so dear. For Arjuna, Dronacharya is so dear. For Arjuna, Bhishma is so dear. One is a grandfather, one is a very dear grandfather, and one more is his guru. Obviously, if you kill them, there will be pain and misery. So Arjuna is saying, I don't want to fight this battle. But Krishna is saying, no, don't look at it this way. Because pain and pleasure is a material phenomenon. It is not a spiritual reality. Krishna is saying, pain and pleasure is a material phenomenon. It is not a spiritual reality. So what is that which Krishna is saying as spiritual reality? Actually, we must understand, we must dwell on the fact. Bhagavad Gita very nicely explains what is spiritual reality. How we can touch that spirituality. Right now, we have no idea. It is very abstract when I say spiritual reality. It is going beyond our senses. Because spiritual knowledge is apaureshya jnana. Apaureshya means beyond the realm of the senses, body, mind and intelligence. Because all our ideas of perception of life are sensual in nature. We can only perceive reality, what is perceivable through our senses. But Krishna is talking realities which is beyond the purview of this mind, body and senses. Which means you have to become spiritual to experience spiritual reality. Just like, for example, to come to understanding calculus. You cannot understand calculus, mathematical calculus, without going through the ABCD of mathematics. The addition, the subtraction, the numbers. Then you understand what is virtual numbers, what is real numbers. All those things comes much later. My call is an invitation. Because I am here, I cannot explain the complete phenomena of Bhagavad Gita, but I can tell you what Bhagavad Gita is going to speak about. And the quote that you have in your institute logo, what you have, what it symbolizes, what it means. Externally, when you say your quote, Sve Sve Karmanya, it says whatever work is there, according to your nature, you do that work. In literal meaning, that's what it means. Sve Sve Karmanya. Whatever is your nature, please do that. According to that nature, you do that work and you will achieve perfection. So you see, this is where you can get misguided. When you say work, Krishna is not talking work on a material platform. Krishna is talking on a spiritual platform. So that is why I have now spoken so much time on establishing what is spiritual dimension, what is spiritual platform. Because without understanding that, if you only read the externally that thing, oh, Krishna is speaking that whatever work you do, any work you do, and you will achieve perfection. That's not true. Say if my nature is a thug, my nature is to do thuggery, then your nature is thuggery, you go on thugging people. I will be only destroying people's lives, right? I cannot go by my nature. Krishna is talking about a higher principle of what work should be done. How we should engage with our life. So for that you have to understand the precursor to reaching that 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So for that, you have to understand the spiritual nature, the material nature. The material activity, the spiritual activity. When you come to the spiritual nature, because this is the last stages of the Bhagavad Gita where your institute has started. And that is very powerful. When you are able to perform activities on a spiritual platform, the results are eternal. When your activity is performed on a material platform, the results are very temporary. And Krishna says, Adyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, any action that has a beginning and an end, wise people don't indulge in that. Krishna is saying any action that has a beginning and an end, wise people don't venture into that action. What does it mean? Krishna is saying any action that you want to get pleasure, there is an immediate gratification which you seek. A wise man doesn't go for instant gratificationary activities. Like when we say, hey, avoid fast food. Fast food gives us instant gratification. But in the long run, that fast food is a killer. You keep on adding fats to your body. So it is so much important that we recognize that this food is not good. This is a very gross example that I am giving you to illustrate the fact of sensually driven activities. From the sensual level, we should shift to the spiritual level. To come to that spiritual level, you should become spiritual. Krishna is giving the roadmap, and Krishna is pushing Arjuna to take the spiritual path and not to see realities from just a material point of view. It is material point of view with respect to Arjuna is, this battle is not for Arjuna's pleasure or sadness. This battle has to be fought for higher purpose. Because Krishna wants this battle to be fought. Krishna has to establish righteousness through this battle. It is not about property dispute. It is not settling some property issue. Krishna wants to use this context to establish righteousness, and Krishna is using Arjuna to be part of that mission. India is that country. We don't do things just like that. We want to Bharata. Bharata is known for its spiritual purpose. We don't want to be just an imitator of the West as development is thought about there. Our idea of development is not only external. It's not about increasing our buildings. It's not about increasing our infrastructure. It is our personal position, personal understanding. It's a land of self-realization. Just as we develop our external aspects, similarly we should be developing internally also. Internally, when I say free from lust, free from greed, free from anger, being humble, being meek, these are all divine qualities. Krishna speaks about these things in the 14th chapter, in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. As a human being, how to develop. That is also, it's like I heard the other day, the ISRO chairman speaking. He says, this flying rockets and going to the moon, Mars, is my external mission. But I also have an internal mission. Right? I don't know how many of you heard that. He says there's an internal mission where I dwell on philosophy. I dwell on the scriptures. I dwell on the temples. We are missing that. So like for example, when you see the quote of the Bhagavad Gita on the IIM logo, we should dwell there. We should not just look at it as Svesve Karmani, just doing work. Whether I can do the work on that spiritual platform. That's insightful, that's thought-provoking. And that gives us a new dimension to our life. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. And whatever I could communicate from the Bhagavad Gita, the various aspects of the Bhagavad Gita, I hope I have done justice to that. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, comments, I am very happy to take it.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your invaluable experiences with us. Now we'll be opening the forum for Q&A if there are any. Namaskaram, sir. You talked about karma philosophy, and I do believe in that. My question to you is that I am not able to differentiate between the thing that if something bad is happening to us, is it because of a bad karma that we did in the past, or is that the person who is doing the thing, is he building his own bad karma?
Karma is a very, very complex understanding. Why bad things happen to us, how karma influences our current situation. There are various dimensions to that, but ultimately in this material world, whatever situation we are in right now is an outcome of our own karma. There is no doubt about it. Our perception of reality, like I told you, is having only two dimensions. Sometimes it's only one dimension. We see reality, oh, what is happening? That person is such a nice person, but why is he suffering? Right? Now, our scriptures and thought leaders in spirituality, there is seeing realities from many dimensions, because who we are currently is a progressive state of existence, not limiting to just this one life. So now again, it becomes a realm of abstraction. When we say we are beyond one life, and you are talking an abstract thing, right? Because what is reality is we can only relate to one life, because one life is what I can relate to. I can see myself as existing. Say if I am 50 years, I can look at things only at the 50-year period. But what our Shastras look at is not 50 years. So their concept of karma is not limited to my time scale. So who we are, what we are today, is an accumulation of many factors over many millions of years. Like for example, the same question Krishna is asked by Arjuna also. Similar kind of a question, wherein Arjuna asks Krishna this question. When Krishna says to Arjuna, Krishna says in the ongoing conversation, Krishna says to Arjuna one aspect, wherein Krishna says to Arjuna that, my dear Arjuna, this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, many millions of years ago, I have given this knowledge to the sun god. Krishna is referring to sun god, Vivaswan. And Krishna says, I have given this knowledge to Vivaswan, who is the sun god, many millions and millions of years ago. So Arjuna is perplexed when he hears this. Arjuna says to Krishna, hey, what are you talking, man? Many millions of years ago, how were you there many millions of years ago? I and you are we are contemporaries, we are born of the same age, because Arjuna and Krishna are contemporary, they are similar age group. So how come you are saying many millions of years you spoke the knowledge of Gita to sun god many millions of, you were not there, you were there only. Krishna says to, Arjuna says to Krishna. So in reply to that, Krishna says to Arjuna something very profound which I can explain to you what you are asking. What is that Krishna? Krishna is saying, no, my dear Arjuna. I and you have taken many births before. I remember all of them, but you don't remember. That's the difference. So similarly, karma is like that. Karma is not what we see reality as it is at this point of time, or in the last 50 years or 100 years. Karma is accumulation over many generations. So if you, again, coming to my same point, to understand this, that our reality as a person is not limited to our time scale that we define. Because again, for that you have to understand material reality, spiritual reality. The nature of matter, the nature of spirit. It's two different things. Spirit's nature is different. Just like, for example, matter we learn differently. Like, for example, the chemical composition of water. We learn what is the chemical composition of water, right? It is 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. This is what is the chemical composition of water. Now, if you take spirit, it's different, totally different. It's neither hydrogen nor oxygen, it's something else. So its nature is completely different. Its behavior is completely different. So, to understand karma, you have to understand reality is one. Currently, we understand reality only in this dimension, but reality has another dimension. Just like, for example, the other day I was listening to one lecture. Very interesting point he makes. He's a great physicist. He says, like, if you take this table as what? This table as is nothing but different atoms are there in this table. Like millions and millions of atoms. It's an accumulation of atoms in this table. Now, atom is comprising of what? Atom is comprising of a nucleus and an electron. Right? In the nucleus, what is there? There is proton, there is neutron, and there is an electron which revolves around its orbit. Right? This is what we have learned physics. Right? Now he says, if you take the size of proton, he is saying it is some size. Neutron is some size and electron is some size. Now if you take the atom size, this neutron, proton and electron occupies less than 1/10 the size of the atom. The entire atom, if you say, this neutron, proton, this is a scientist who is speaking. Neutron, proton and electron occupies less than 1/10 the space of the atom. That means the rest of the space is only space, empty. So, like, for example, if you see this, any object that you see, we see it as an object. Right? We don't see it as empty space. We see it as an object. But in reality, what he is saying is it only empty space. But what our reality is saying is that we see it as an object. So reality is not that true. Reality is, it is space. From the physics point of view, this is space. But our eyes sees it as an object. Right? So similarly, when we see karma, when we see realities, we see it at a very small dimension of things. It has got many other dimensions to it. So karma, when we say why things happen bad, good, our understanding of reality is very limited. That's all that I can give, the limited answer to your question.
Any other questions?
Good evening, sir. Khushbu Jain, PGP Batch 2325. You were explaining that Krishna was saying there is a super way of acting where the actions do not lead to the beginning and ending of the results. So how is that possible? Because we only know that every action has reaction.
Very good question. How to become how we can perform actions which doesn't bring about a reaction. Right? Very, very important question. This is fundamental spirituality. Krishna says, when you perform actions on the material platform, there is reactions. When you perform actions on a spiritual plane, there is no reactions. That's a simple answer, direct answer to your question. What is spiritual action? What is spiritual platform? That requires tapasya. That requires practice. Just like, for example, Krishna says, karmasu kaushalam. Kaushalya. Kaushalya means what? Ability. By practice you develop ability. Right? So I've done justice to my talk. If this talk inspires you to take up actions on a spiritual platform or trying to take it up, it's very important, because actions performed on a material plane, no matter how good that action is, the result of that action will be temporary. It is not everlasting. And Krishna says that's not very intelligent way of doing actions.
If we do it with the intention, a good intention, does it count in the spiritual care?
Good and bad, both are material. When we look at it, whether it is good or bad, in this material world, in fact, Krishna says, Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayo rapi yatra mohita. Krishna is saying, what is right action and what is wrong action. To determine that, even great, thoughtful people are bewildered. It's not easy. It's never going to be easy. What is right, what is wrong in this material world to determine. My God, it's impossible to do it. Very, very difficult to do. So Krishna is saying to Arjuna, akarmat bhavo. Don't get into this trajectory of good and right. You perform action which is reactionless. Now, I'll just give you a small thing. How we can perform actions on akarma platform, that is reactionless. Krishna is actually very nicely pointing out in the Gita this aspect. Krishna says in the battle of how Arjuna should perform this battle. Because battle means what? Killing. Killing is sinful, no? You are giving pain to somebody else. So Krishna says to Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mame vaishyatya samshaya. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhyacha. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, at all point of time, at every point of your time, please fight this battle. How you should fight this battle? Thinking about me. Surrendering your actions to me. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. Remember me and fight this battle. Surrender your activities to me and fight. That is why, now this is the 18th chapter, 45th verse. As you move forward, when you read the 60th verse, the essence of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says. What is the essence of Bhagavad Gita? The core principle of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Krishna is saying, Sarvadharman. Dharma means righteous action. Now Krishna is saying, contradicting himself totally. The Gita is about dharma, establishing dharma. Now Krishna is totally contradicting himself. What is he saying? Sarva dharman parityajya. Parityajya means what? Giving up. Now Krishna is asking Arjuna to do what?
Give up the dharma.
Give up dharma. Krishna is saying, Sarva dharman parityaja. Krishna is telling, please give up all dharma. And then do what? Mam ekam sharanam vraja. Krishna is saying, just surrender to me alone. Right? And he said, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshacha. See, the thing is that there's a deep science behind this. What is the thing that Krishna is trying to point out? In the material world, our actions are driven by our ego. Any action are driven by our ego. Oh, I want to be in IIM. I want to be an IIT graduate. I want to achieve this. And as soon as it is driven by ego, as soon as it is driven by ahankara, obviously that action will have many, many defects. Action driven by surrender, by no personal motive, will liberate you, will give you mukti. So Krishna is saying, you make me the object of that action. The purpose of the action should be me. Like, many times we keep on hearing this thing. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. India is the land of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. What is the idea of that? Bring the center, Vasudeva. In the material world, the center is I. I am the center of all activity. Our principle is that you are not the center. You are not the doer. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, Nimitta matram bhava savya sachim. Krishna is saying, my dear Arjuna, all these people that are there in this battle, they are already killed by me. That I have predetermined it. I am just giving you the opportunity to become Nimitta. Nimitta means you are just an instrument. So become an instrument in my plan. But in our conception, what we do, I want to be the center of action. That's the problem. Because if you want to be the center, the person who's sitting next to you, he also wants to be the center. Then what happens? There is friction, there is clash. It's never going, nobody is going to win. We are going to just equalize and destroy each other. Our philosophy, our core philosophy is that you are not the center of your activity. The Lord Vasudeva Kutumbakam, He is the center. We are doing all our work as a service to Him. Right? So this is the philosophy. So if you want reactionless actions, then make the center proper. Create a proper center. Then there will be no reactions. But if you make center your ahankara, your personal desires as the motivation for your action, that is not going to end up very well.
Thank you, sir.
Right?
I'm sure a lot of us are curious about knowing about spirituality more, but moving on, I would like to call Professor Pravesh Sir, member of Saksham Committee, to hand over the memento to our esteemed guest.